Chapter 23 of Babbitt. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mike Venditti, MikeVenditti.com. Babbitt by Sinclair Lewis. Chapter 23. 1. He was busy from March to June. He kept himself from the bewilderment of thinking. His wife and the neighbors were generous. Every evening he played bridge or attended the movies, and the days were blank of face and silent. In June, Mrs. Babbitt and Tinka went East to stay with relatives, and Babbitt was free to do he was not quite sure what. All day long after their departure he thought of the emancipated house in which he could, if he desired, go mad and curse the gods without having to keep up a husbandly front. He considered, "I could have a regular party tonight, stay out till 2 and not do any explaining afterward. Cheers." He telephoned to Vergil Gunch, to Eddie Swanson. Both of them were engaged for the evening, and suddenly he was bored by having to take so much trouble to be riotous. He was silent at dinner, unusually kindly to Ted and Verona, hesitating but not disapproving them when Verona stated her opinion, of Kenneth Escott's opinion, of Dr. John Jennison Drew's opinion, of the opinions of the evolutionists. Ted was working in a garage through the summer vacation, and he related his daily triumphs, how he had found a cracked ball race, what he had said to the old grouch, what he had said to the foreman about the future of wireless telephony. Ted and Verona went to a dance after dinner. Even the maid was out. Rarely had Babbitt been alone in the house for an entire evening. He was restless. He vaguely wanted something more diverting than the newspaper comic strips to read. He ambled up to Verona's room, sat on her maidenly blue and white bed, humming and grunting in a solid citizen manner as he examined her books. Conrad's Rescue, a volume strangely named Figures of Earth, poetry, quite irregular poetry, Babbitt thought, by Vachel Lindsay, and essays by H. L. Mencken, highly improper essays, making fun of the church and all the decencies. He liked none of the books. In them he felt a spirit of rebellion against niceties and solid citizenship. These authors, and he supposed they were famous too, did not seem to care about telling a good story which would enable a fellow to forget his troubles. He sighed. He noted a book, The Three Black Pennies, by Joseph Hergesheimer. Ah, that was something like it. It would be an adventure story, maybe about counterfeiting, detectives sneaking up on the old house at night. He tucked the book under his arm. He clumped downstairs and solemnly began to read under the piano lamp. A twilight like blue dust sifted into the shallow fold of the thickly wooded hills. It was early October, but a crisping frost had already stamped the maple trees with gold. The Spanish oaks were hung with patches of wine red. The sumac was brilliant in the darkening underbrush. A pattern of wild geese, flying low and unconcerned above the hills, wavered against the serene, ashen evening. Howat Penny, standing in the contemplative clearing of a road, decided that the shifting regular flight would not come close enough for a shot. He had no intention of hunting the geese. With the drooping of day his keenness had evaporated, and habitual indifference strengthened, permeating him. There it was again, discontent with the good common ways. Babbitt laid down the book and listened to the stillness. The inner doors of the house were open. He heard from the kitchen the steady drip of the refrigerator, a rhythm demanding and disquieting. He roamed to the window. The summer evening was foggy, and seen through the wire screen the street lamps were crosses of pale fire. The whole world was abnormal. While he brooded, Verona and Ted came in and went up to bed. Silence thickened in the sleeping house. He put on his hat, his respectable derby, lighted a cigar, and walked up and down before the house, a portly, worthy, unimaginative figure, humming silver threads among the gold. He casually considered, "Might call up Paul." Then he remembered he saw Paul in a jailbird's uniform. But while he agonized, he didn't believe the tale. It was part of the unreality of this fog-enchanted evening. If she were here, Myra would be hinting, Isn't it late, Georgie?" He tramped in forlorn and unwanted freedom. Fog hid the house now. The world was uncreated, a chaos without turmoil or desire. Through the mist came a man at so feverishly a pace that he seemed to dance with fury as he entered the orb of glow from a street lamp. At each step he brandished his stick and brought it down with a crash. His glasses, on their broad pretentious ribbon, banged against his stomach. Babbitt incredulously saw that it was Chum Frink. Frink stopped, focused his vision, and spoke with gravity. "There's another fool. George Babbitt lives for renting houses. Know who I am? I'm traitor to poetry. I'm drunk. I'm talking too much. I don't care. Know what I could have been? I could have been a Gene Field or a James Whitcomb Riley, maybe Stevenson. I could have whimsied Magdalene. Listen to this. Just made it up. Glittering summery meadow noise of beetles and bums and respectable boys. Hear that? Wismus Wimby? I made that up. I don't know what it means. Beginning good verse. Child's Garden verses. And what did I write? Tripe. Cheer up poems, all tripe. Could have written. Too late." He darted on with an alarming plunge, seeming always to pitch forward, yet never quite falling. Babbitt would have been no more astonished, and no less had a ghost skipped out of the fog carrying his head. He accepted Frink with vast apathy. He grunted, "Poor boob," and straightway forgot him. He plodded into the house, deliberately went to the refrigerator and rifled it. When Mrs. Babbitt was at home, this was one of the major household crimes. He stood before the covered laundry tubs, eating a chicken leg and half a saucer of raspberry jelly, and grumbling over a clammy, cold boiled potato. He was thinking it was coming to him that perhaps all life as he knew it and vigorously practiced it was futile, that heaven, as portrayed by the Reverend Dr. John Jennison Drew, was neither probable nor very interesting, that he hadn't much pleasure out of making money, that it was of doubtful worth to rear children merely that they might rear children who would rear children. What was it all about? What did he want? He blundered into the living room, lay on the davenport, hands behind his head. What did he want? Wealth, social position, travel, servants? Yes, but only incidentally. "I give it up," he sighed. But he did know that he wanted the presence of Paul Riesling, and from that he stumbled into the admission that he wanted the fairy girl in the flesh. If there had been a woman whom he loved, he would have fled to her, humbled his forehead on her knees. He thought of his stenographer, Miss McGowan. He thought of the prettiest of the manicure girls at the Hotel Thornlaw barber shop. As he fell asleep on a davenport, he felt that he had found something in life, and that he had made a terrifying, thrilling break with everything that was decent and normal. 2. He had forgotten next morning that he was a conscious rebel, but he was irritable in the office, and at 11 o'clock, drive of telephone calls and visitors, he did something he had often desired and never dared. He left the office without excuses to those slave drivers, his employees, and went to the movies. He enjoyed the right to be alone. He came out with a vicious determination to do what he pleased. As he approached the Roughnecks' table at the club, everybody laughed. "Well, here's the millionaire," said Sidney Finkelstein. "Yes, I saw him in his locomobile," said Professor Pumphrey. "Gosh, it must be great to be a smart guy like Georgie," moaned Vergil Gunch. "He's probably stolen all of Dorchester. I'd hate to leave a poor little defenseless piece of property lying around where he could get his hooks on it." They had, Babbitt perceived, something on him. Also, they had their kidding clothes on. Ordinarily he would have been delighted at the honor implied in being chaffed, but he was suddenly touchy. He grunted, "Yeah, sure, maybe I'll take you guys on as office boys." He was impatient